Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Content Co-Marketing Fundamentals webcast delivered by the Channel Institute and Averetek. My name is Mike Moore, and I'll be your host and one of your presenters today. And joining me from the Channel Institute is Mike Kelly. Mike, thanks for joining me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for inviting.
So we're going to talk about best practices for vendors and channel partners when it comes to content co-marketing and kind of fundamentals. So some goals for this webinar today: we're going to familiarize you with basic concepts of content marketing. We're going to talk about content marketing in the context of co-marketing or delivering content marketing with a partner. Things that we're not going to get deep into today is how to build content. That'll be a future session. And we'll also not really dive too deep into the advanced content marketing strategies. So this is not intended to be a level 200, 300, 400 type of course. It's really to kind of set the foundation. And then, as I said, in future sessions, we'd like to come back and talk to you about some of the more advanced concepts. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the floor over to Mike, and he's going to drive us through the next section here. I'll be back in a bit with some more to add.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Before I jump into the introduction here, let me give you some background on the angle that we take on this. We tend to think it's helpful to take the viewpoint of the technology reseller when we're talking about content co-marketing. So that's the sort of angle that you'll hear me talk about on the next few slides. And we find that useful because even if you are working at a vendor or a brand, you really need to think about the channel partner as your customer here and take that customer perspective. So that's the sort of angle that we'll be working through. Next slide, please, Mike. So first of all, what is content marketing? I'm sure most of us are familiar with it, but I really like this definition from the Content Marketing Institute. It's a strategic marketing approach, and it's focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. And we've underlined the key words here because people often forget this. The content must be valuable, it must be relevant, and there must be a consistent story that it's telling for you. And most importantly, it starts off with a clearly defined audience that you're targeting the message to. So any content that we're using must be of value to that audience very specifically. Next slide, please, Mike. And why is it important? Well, we've all seen these figures before. The bottom line is content marketing is critically important because the entire marketing and sales processes have changed dramatically over the last couple of years. I'm sure we've all seen variations of the 67% number. So 60%, 67% of the entire buying process is completed digitally before a buyer ever reaches out to a salesperson at all. And also interesting deeper research coming out from Demand Gen Report and others that B2B buyers in particular view 3 to 5 different pieces of content before engaging with a salesperson. And not only do they consume multiple pieces of content, but they prefer to receive content that's unique to their buying stage. So hopefully everybody on this webinar is already familiar with things like the buyer's journey and buyer personas. We'll be talking a lot about that today, but that third number there, 76%, that really relates to the buyer's journey, where we need to make sure that we're serving buyers the right type of content for their stage in the buyer's journey. And again, if you work at a vendor, if you're a channel marketer, well, you need to help your channel partners understand this process, and you need to help them find the right co-marketing content from your brand so that they can actually implement these best practices. Next slide, please, Mike. And this is just a quick one, but this, again, is some interesting research, this time from smartinsights.com, where they were looking at, well, what will be the most effective tactics used in digital marketing for this year, 2018. And I recently came across the updated version of that, and it's more or less the same. But you can see that content marketing is number 2. And how do you typically get content marketing out there into the market? You typically do it through things like social media marketing. So those two things work very much hand in hand. So the reason content marketing is critically important is because it and social media marketing are topping the charts in what many companies see as being the most effective digital marketing tactics. And oftentimes you will see channel partners, and especially the smaller technology resellers, consistently go to their default, which are things like events and things like email marketing. And part of the vendor's role really is to try to upskill channel partners and try to move them in the new direction so that they can win in digital, because if they're not winning in digital, they're kind of getting left behind. Next slide, please, Mike. And again, for any technology resellers that are on this webinar or brands, we all need to accept the new rules of marketing. The old method of things like cold calling will be considered interruptive marketing, and it's rapidly declining in effectiveness. So the return on investment from those type of older marketing tactics is simply plummeting. And now we need to be looking at educational marketing. And to do educational marketing, we need to take a completely different perspective. The content cannot be about your organization, your products, your new toy. It has to be about your audience. What is it they want? How can they learn? At what stage in the learning process are they at? And how can we move them forward in the buyer's journey and influence their direction in the buyer's journey so that they're moving towards us? Now, that's a big ask if you're a small technology reseller company with minimal resources and very little marketing training and marketing experience. So again, this is where vendor partners have to come into play and help steer and help train and help enable. And also part of the new rules of marketing is educating before selling. You have to earn the right to sell, and you do that by first educating. So we use content marketing to attract in the new prospects and to earn the right to start selling to them later in the buyer's journey. And then we use things like marketing automation to nurture prospects through that buyer's journey. Next slide, please, Mike. So we're going to look at one particular model of a content marketing strategy now. There's lots of different models out there, but we like this particular approach because it's a very structured 5-stage approach. Next slide, please. And in this approach, the 5 stages are quite standard: plan, create, then design, then publish, and of course measure. Measurement is something that often gets left behind. Let's go through each one in turn. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, the audience is critical. So first of all, the entire team must agree on the clearly defined audience. And when we're talking about content co-marketing, we need to make sure that all stakeholders are on board with this. Perhaps there's marketing and sales and channel at the vendor company. Perhaps there's marketing and sales and executives at the channel partner. But we need to make sure that everybody is on the same page with this. And when somebody shouts charge, that we are all charging in the same agreed direction. Otherwise, it's mayhem. And that's something that we often see missed. So getting everybody on board and being very clear, this is clearly defined audience, and defining that audience meticulously using the right demographics or firmographics. And naturally, you'll probably have multiple segments, but as a first step, building the buyer personas and defining that buyer's journey for the solutions is really helpful. So again, getting everybody, all the stakeholders on board, and perhaps the vendor can come to the channel partner with some buyer personas and pre-researched buyer's journey that the vendor already uses, and at least bringing that to the channel partner so we're not reinventing the wheel. Perhaps that can just be customized for the channel partner's own solutions. Next slide, please. And then when you've done that, you need to map the content to the different buyer personas that you've come up with. This enables you to define your audiences in a much more sophisticated and a much more meaningful way, so that you can tailor the content and tailor the messaging to the needs of a specific persona. So you also need to understand things like, well, what are the objectives that we're trying to achieve with each of these different personas? How might we achieve them? And what sort of content type does each of these different personas prefer? So if you're targeting a financial buyer, well, that needs to have a certain type of content. If you're targeting a technology buyer, that needs completely different type of content. And you need to think about, well, which of these is the influencer, which is the decision maker, and so on. What roles are they playing? And what sort of content and when will they need that? Next slide, please. And again, mapping all of this content to the buyer's journey. If you're serving people the wrong content at a particular point in time in their journey, they're going to switch off. And that's what we saw from the slide earlier, talking about the different statistics. So you need to make sure that the story that we're telling is logical and it's consistent and it moves through step by step. So a continuous story with a consistent narrative is what we're looking for. And again, helping technology resellers to achieve this and to approach their content marketing as storytelling is a really interesting way of helping them understand the logical flow of the content that they should be delivering. And of course, the story needs to evolve. It needs to change throughout the buyer's journey, starting off with the introductions, maybe with some light content, and then progressively getting more serious as they move towards decision stages. So each content piece needs to logically move a buyer further along the journey towards buying with the channel partner. Next slide, please.
So I'll jump in. Yeah, I'll jump in with a little bit more on kind of the buyer's journey, because I think this is a piece that actually a few months ago I was at a conference and asked to help facilitate a workshop talking about marketing through channel partners to line of business buyers. And so part of the discussion got into buyer's journey. And as I talked to the folks in the room who represented different vendor brands, many of them had buyer's journey templates and that kind of information that was developed by their colleagues in marketing, but many hadn't shared it with channel partners. So I think that's an opportunity, is to look inside, see what you already have as a company that you can leverage, how you would share that with partners. But if you don't have it, I think this is a good place to start, is considering what the buyer's behavior is. You know, we talk about buyer's journey, and I'll build this slide in just a moment with kind of the marketer's point of view, but from the buyer's perspective, they go through 3 states in a buyer's journey, which is learning, shopping, and buying behavior. And so you can relate to this probably from your own, different situations. Like I'll give you something that I'm dealing with right now. It's the end of summer here in Massachusetts, and it's time to cover up and winterize the swimming pool. And I don't really know what I'm doing. So I go online and look for how to winterize and how to do that for the pool filter itself. It's a problem that I have. I'm looking for solutions. I'm not looking for anyone to sell to me. But I found a couple of helpful blog articles that explain step by step. One of them actually had a YouTube video. So I'm in learning mode. I'm picking up on different tips. As I was reviewing that content, there are some products that companies sell that you are supposed to dump in the pool now, so that when you open it in the spring, it's not a big green swamp. Okay, now I'm in shopping mode, because it was something I didn't know I needed, a product that's out there that will be helpful to me in the future, and it's helped me understand that problem that I have. And now I'm looking at that and saying, oh, well, if this company offers this product, I wonder if that's the best one that's out there for this category that I didn't even know about. And so now I'm in shopping mode, and I'm looking at that and reviewing more of the content that's out there and potentially looking at different brands. And then I move eventually into buying. Now, obviously, we're talking about a product that's, I think it's somewhere around like $30. So not an expensive decision by any stretch. But if you look at the last time you bought a car, if the last time that you went on a vacation to a new destination, you probably went through these 3 phases of the buyer's journey yourself. And it could happen very quickly in one sitting, or it could happen over a long span of time. In most of the B2B buying decisions that we see companies making now, they are moving through these 3 distinct phases. The difference is a lot of the learning happens individually. So one person sitting at their computer, they're going on Google, they're doing some research. Maybe they've been delegated to do some research on behalf of the committee, because that's usually where we see the shopping phase kind of come together, is that it's a committee-based approach to shopping. Many people, many different disciplines around the organization contributing to this decision making and looking at different options that are in there. So marketing might have a play, IT, finance, procurement, everybody's around the table making this committee-based decision. And then it comes back to just procurement and whoever the line of business decision maker is, maybe when the buying stage happens. But there's a lot of this that's kind of spread out through the process. So thinking about buyer's journey and mapping content, learning behavior. What content can I give people that will help them understand how to solve problems they may be having that are related to what we do, but we're not talking at all about our products or services? The shopping stage content would start to introduce the different products and services that you and your partners offer and presenting why they should even be considered by a buyer. And then the buying stage content comes back to what specifically do I want to put out as kind of my value prop that would say, among all the choices in the market, you should choose what I and my partner have to offer. Why am I better? So, a lot of that is kind of customer success from previous customers, making people feel better about the decision they're about to make. So this is kind of all from the buyer's perspective. What we look at from the marketer's point of view here is it kind of maps in the same kind of stage here, which is attract, engage, delight. This is what HubSpot calls it in their inbound model. Some people call it awareness, consideration, and close. So there are different terminologies that are applied to this depending on which model you subscribe to. When I think about kind of the approach that Mike was talking about from a content marketing standpoint, being very helpful, teaching people, educating them, it very much aligns with this HubSpot inbound model. And I know Mike's going to reference a couple of other HubSpot tips as we go. But I encourage everybody to take a look at this inbound marketing link that's on the slides. And by the way, in your GoToWebinar window, we did post the handout of this deck today with all the hyperlinks active, so you can click these things. But it's worth going out and at least reviewing this page. They also do have an inbound training course that's free. And I think there's a great opportunity to learn more about it. And then, if you participate in some of the Channel Institute programs, you'll be able to build on that understanding and kind of relate it to channel marketing. So the buyer's journey doesn't have to be overwhelming. You can approach it very simply. You can leverage what colleagues have done for work, but thinking about how you're going to teach people as a starting point is definitely a best practice. All right, back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. And as I move into this next slide, I can almost hear the groans from any channel marketers at the vendor companies. I can barely get my channel partners to use our content, let alone think about using brand voice. But brand voice really follows out quite logically if you've already gone through building buyer personas and the buyer's journey. So what we want to bring you really is best practice. And things like brand voice is a fairly sophisticated marketing technique. It may not be useful for all of your channel partners, perhaps the more advanced ones, but it's an important piece. And it's really around the style that you write in, and most importantly, the consistent style that your channel partner is writing in. It, of course, depends on the persona that you're targeting. So decisions need to be made about what sort of brand voice you want to go with. But it's important that these decisions are made in advance during the planning stage so that we don't suddenly decide when we've chosen the content, oh, and by the way, what's our style going to be here? A helpful way of approaching this that we found is these four categories where you can look at, well, what persona are we going to use? First of all, is it going to be friendly or playful, or do we want to be seen as the authority in this area? What's the tone in that case? Well, if we're going to be the authority, maybe we need to be a little bit more clinical or direct as opposed to personal. What sort of language? Again, if we're going to be the authority subject here, maybe a little bit of jargon is important. It will help people relate to us more. And also, what's the purpose of what we're trying to achieve here? Are we trying to educate, entertain, delight, or something else? So thinking through all of those questions, again, as a team with all stakeholders on board, helps us to make sure that we have a consistent brand voice and style that we can use. And a couple of other questions worth considering are, how do we want to be perceived within our industry? Do we want to be similar to other people, or is there some reason that we'd like to stand out from the others? And what about if we're a technology reseller? What sort of voice do our vendor partners use? And again, if you're working at a vendor, think about, well, what's the brand voice for your company, and how might that play for your channel partners? So there, of course, is no right answer here. It's about asking the questions and talking this through as a team so that you have a logical outcome before you even start your content marketing. Next slide, please, Mike.
Yeah, before we leave this, I just want to chip in with one bit on this, that I think that many brands look at their content that they're sharing with channel partners for co-branding and co-marketing use the same way they look at their own content. So the voice, the visual style, and all of that, they try to keep it on the brand book. And to me, it's a missed opportunity. If you look at from a brand's perspective, you have to, if you are one of the large software tech companies, whatever you are in the world, you have to follow the rules. You have a set of standards, and a lot of thought goes into kind of your voice, tone, message, a lot of the elements that you're talking about on here. Your channel partners don't have the same constraints. In fact, they can get away with saying just about anything, and they don't have the same rules. So I'm not saying that we need to be edgy and really kind of breaking new ground too much, but giving partners flexibility through the materials you share with them to experiment with different voices, tones, addressing the personas in different ways that you may be not able to. I think even just if you look at the persona line here, friendly, playful, or authoritative, like how do you want to take it? Letting people be themselves, letting them speak to the market the way they speak, gives them a lot of flexibility. And quite frankly, if you're too rigid in what you give to channel partners for content, many of them who don't feel the same way won't want to participate because it will take too much effort for them to re-engineer what you're giving them into something that feels comfortable and authentic for them. So playing with different opportunities or being flexible in the kind of the way that, you still have to have your line that you're not willing to cross, right? So there has to be certain elements where if it's going to carry your brand logo, you won't go to a certain area. That's fine. And being clear with partners about what your limits are is fine too. But really embracing this as an opportunity to be more creative and let them be more authentic, I think, is a huge opportunity.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, and you've given me a perfect segue into the next slide, because we all know that engagement rates with partner marketing portals are abysmal. The number of partner marketing portals that are just completely ignored by channel partners is very high. And part of it is because the channel partners not only find them difficult to work with, but also find a conflict between their brand and the vendor brand because there's too much restriction. So as Mike was saying, I think if we can work closer on that, and if you're working at a vendor, work more closely with the channel partners to customize these sort of things, everything suddenly starts getting more effective and starts being used more. So for channel partners, the first thing they need to do is to identify any relevant content on their vendor partners' partner marketing portals. But of course, the vendor has to help them do that. Every partner works with multiple vendors, which means they work with multiple partner marketing portals. If they don't get assistance, they'll go with the path of least resistance and go wherever it's easier for them. And certainly the advice to the channel partners is it may be more challenging than you expect to find the content that you need with a vendor partner. And you also need to understand, if you're a channel partner, well, which content pieces can be edited, which ones can be co-branded, and how difficult is it to do this? So again, the responsibility is with the vendor to make that as easy as possible for the channel partner, otherwise it simply won't get used. Again, helping the partner understand what sort of design restrictions are in place, what sort of approvals are required in order to use the content and get it out there. That's often a major barrier to use of these partner marketing portals. And again, for the channel partner, defining where each of these co-branded pieces fit in the overall strategy is very important. So all of this is still the planning stage, looking at these content libraries and picking out which pieces can be used with the channel partner's own content to make sure that everything is aligned logically for buyer personas and buyer's journey. Next slide, please. And it's only now that we start thinking about creating content. And often when we're teaching this topic, we find people jumping into creating content much too quickly. And I suppose that's the same with most things in life. People want to get in creating stuff, but it's also one of the biggest reasons for failure. People are simply not planning for success. So we need to make sure that the content is providing value to the chosen audience that we're targeting with this particular campaign. We also need to make sure that any content that we're putting out there is informing or expressing an opinion or analyzing an industry or delivering value in some way. So making sure that it's not just promotional or sales focused. And even the largest technology vendors still fall foul of this. We still see a lot of content that's simply shouting, me, 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 I'm the best. And that sort of content cannot be used in content marketing. And when you're talking about channel partners who maybe don't understand content marketing all that well, they will take that content, go to market, and then everybody wonders why their campaigns are failing. So coming back to all of this, what are we trying to do with this content? Are we trying to inform? Are we trying to analyze, express an opinion? What is it? And again, all of this is very nice to hear, but where do you actually get the ideas for good content that people are going to find valuable and interesting? And I think some of these are good sources of ideas. So firstly, well, what sort of questions are your customers asking you as a vendor? And what sort of questions are being asked of the technology reseller themselves as well? So a good starting off point is just to get a page together with all of these sort of questions. That in itself is a great platform to start then looking for content that maybe answers those sort of questions. Also, for the channel partner, the sort of keywords that they use in their SEO and that they're found by, case studies are certainly good, and social media conversations are something that are rarely used but can be extremely effective. They're topical, they're now, and they're easy to access. So simply doing some social listening will often bring up very effective topics that you can focus on for your content marketing. Next slide, please. And what sort of content should we be using? Well, the answer is it depends on your objectives and it depends on the buyer's journey, which we'll look at in the next slide. But various pieces can be used, cheat sheets, videos, worksheets, and so on.
Well, I think we just lost Mike there. So I know he was having, Mike's in Dublin and was having a bit of a storm there. So I'll keep going. So some different examples, obviously, of the content here. But think about light content. Think about things that really boil down complex topics. Nobody's looking for a 15-page white paper. People want snack-sized content. And when we take it into the content mix that's really going to be best for us, as Mike just indicated, you can think about it based on different stages of the buyer's journey. When you're bored at work in the afternoon, you might like a video or a quick article or an infographic or a tweet or a LinkedIn post catches your interest. As people dive deeper into the buyer's journey, that's when they'll start looking at some of this other content that would be things on the channel partner's website. So case studies, white papers, ebooks, that kind of more meaty content as people get deeper in because they want to learn more about the product. And then finally, in the opportunity stage, it's about confirming that the decision you're about to make is the right one from the buyer's perspective. So it's ROI, it's pricing, it's face-to-face contact, it's testimonials. I wrote a blog article yesterday on the Averetek blog about how an event-only approach to marketing, which is what many channel partners take, is not sufficient to drive growth. And this is, I think, a perfect representation. If you think the event is kind of that in-person circle on the right, everything else needs to happen to really cement in kind of the buyer's perspective what's best for them. So from a content standpoint, here's an example campaign. Just pulling out my my sidebar here to make sure we're all good to go. Okay, good. So from a a content standpoint, this is a really interesting campaign that came out this week from a video company, Wistia. So they went to an agency called Sandwich Video, which they use for video production, and they asked them to make a commercial, essentially an ad for their Soapbox video product, which lets you record short videos from your browser, use them for sales and marketing engagement. And they asked them to make a $1,000 video, a $10,000, and a $100,000. And so what drove the different pricing was the technology that they used. So the first video, the $1,000 video, was shot on an iPhone. When you go into 10,000 and 100,000, they're using better camera. They're using better sound equipment. In the 10,000 and 100,000, they're using professional actors versus using people around the office. So what they are going to track and kind of monitor on this campaign, and it will be interesting to watch at the link that we're seeing here, is exactly what the results are of the campaign and which ads perform best. Their notion is that more money doesn't actually turn into more results from a content standpoint. So the reason I think it's relevant for our conversation today is people look at content and content production work and think of the big budgets that are required to create this big full bill of materials for channel marketing. And what we see is that from the buyer's perspective, they don't care so much about the high production. If you're going to do audio content or even video content, the quality of the sound matters, but that can be achieved with a $100 microphone. You don't have to go into a professional studio and have it recorded so that it could be played on audible.com or something. So the standards and kind of what people expect from content have come down in a helpful way so that we can create things, whether it's blog article content or those kind of things, video, audio, those kind of podcasts, everything like that. We can achieve it in a much more reasonable way, so we don't have to spend $100,000 on one video, which for many of us wouldn't even be sufficient. So that's the kind of the Wistia example. So I encourage you to read the article and kind of watch the 3 videos. I think it'll be a fun campaign to see as it plays out. All right, Mike, I think you're back with us.
Yes, I am. Apologies, everybody. No webinar is complete without some technical issues.
Well, the fact that we're doing this from Boston and Dublin and kind of pulling it all off is good enough. So there's always going to be some little issue, but we'll. I covered the last one, of course, for you and gave this example about the Wistia, so I'll pop you right onto the next slide to talk about design.
Fabulous, thank you. So the next stage of design is a little bit easier to think about, but really it's around what images will engage the target personas that you've already built up. So to think about, well, what are the sort of things that they will react to, what sort of things will they engage with, and how might the buying stage affect the design as well. So for example, if we're focused on the latter stages where we're trying to influence a decision, well, what sort of images might help there, I guess, things that are a bit more serious, things that reflect credibility. And also, what are your competitors doing and what sort of standards are in the industry as well. Again, no right answers here. It's just about talking this through as a team and making sure that you have considered all of the angles before you go to design stage. Next slide, please. And the editorial calendar, I won't spend long on this except to say there are many free templates that are available on the web. I like this one as an example from HubSpot, but an editorial calendar is a very effective way of organizing what can be quite complex. And certainly if you're working at a vendor in channel marketing, I think going to a channel partner with a template like this is a really effective way for them to understand how everything pieces together. So that sort of calendar will pull together things like buyer's journey and buyer personas, but will also then help them understand the flow. And probably more importantly, we'll make sure that you have a consistent integrated marketing campaign that you can run, because that's really what you're looking for. And next slide, please, Mike.
All right, so the next piece we're going to walk through is just an example of a campaign. So this is, in my role here at Averetek, I get to see a lot of channel marketing campaigns that are set up for co-marketing and co-branding. that our clients deliver to their channel partners. And so what I've pulled out is what I feel one of the best examples of kind of doing it well. So it's an example from Pure Storage for their Flash Array X product, and I'll just walk you through what I think are kind of the key pieces. So they have a compelling offer, something that will be interesting to buyers in their target persona. Then they deliver it through a bill of materials that is helpful to the channel partner, which really requires very little effort for the channel partner themselves. So they give them a landing page to present the offer, some blog content that can be used to promote the offer. And blog content these days, I always talk about the fact that, you know, ideally a company has a blog on their website, that they've built that in as kind of a featured area, because it's going to bring traffic back through that organic search. People looking for different things end up on the company blog. Blogging, though, also can be done on LinkedIn, and it's actually a really good platform for blogging because it has, you know, kind of coming up in built-in searches that are happening throughout the LinkedIn platform. It's getting indexed by Google as well, but of course it gets shared with the network. So long as you're linking back to your own website, you know, this is true for all of you as well as for your channel partners. I think LinkedIn is a very good platform for blogging. Email to promote the landing page and the blog, and of course social content. So if you're giving partners all of these ingredients, it gives them a great opportunity to deliver a complete campaign that will line up with what buyers are looking for. So let's take a look at how it's delivered. So the first thing is they're presenting it, and they are an Averetek client, and kind of full disclosure here. So this is the Averetek platform as implemented for Pure. So they're laying out the campaign description on kind of why use it, what product, who the target audience is, and the specific roles, and then delivering all of the resources down the right-hand side. One of the most important pieces I feel that they've done a really great job at with all of their campaigns, but they put together a partner campaign guide for the campaign. So they never take for granted that channel partners understand exactly what they're giving them and know what to do with it. So they lay it out in this very helpful guide. So let's just page through this and kind of see what's in it. So the first page, of course, they're breaking down again, what is this from a product standpoint going to eventually drive people to? Who's the target audience? What verticals? What's the availability? What's the value prop associated with this solution? And why should the partner use it? How is it going to help them build their business? And then what's in this kit? So it's a white paper-based campaign in this case. So going through it, they break down the resources, what sales enablement materials, what campaign asset files, how do you actually organize the campaign? Of course, it's all automated for them in the tool, but they want them to understand the pieces and the steps that are involved. Publish the white paper through the landing page, send an email, promote it through social media. Here's some sample tweet text. Here are some sales enablement materials. So as you start generating interest with customers, you have a presentation to deliver. You've got some blog articles to refer people to. So kind of build and help teach, help them learn going through the buyer's journey process. And then the final piece, and you'd say, why would you include this last page of it? Well, I think it's important, just they're making themselves available. So they're offering partners a direct link back to the team that produced the content. Send me an email, ask me questions. I'm going to help you kind of having that. Now, when they deliver the landing page, they're presenting it for co-marketing. So they're delivering it through an automated platform that allows the partner to put their logo on it, to make some changes. So anything that you see that has a green outline around it, they've left open so that the partner can make changes to the content. So there's a certain amount of it that they need to keep. Maybe they want to offer some flexibility in kind of the call to action or description. The partner has the flexibility to do that in kind of the example that I'm showing here on the screen. Same thing for the email message. It's pre-written, it's ready to go. It's very easy for them. They get a quick preview of it. They can do some customization. So a real simple delivery of a campaign makes it easy for the partner to come in, but a lot of thought and planning goes into the preparation of the content. All right, back to you for some measurement discussion, Mike.
Great, thanks. So let's assume we've got everything in place and we have the campaign up and running and everything's going swimmingly. The problem is, has measurement even been thought about in the planning stage of this campaign? There's no point in having these effective campaigns if we can't measure what pieces are effective and what pieces are not, because then we can't optimize the campaign. So again, this is something that needs to be thought through. So we need to make sure that measurement starts at the content creation stage and that all of the measurement pieces are being built in there. So that needs to be considered when it's done at creation. And also having clear goals around this. What is it that we're trying to measure at the awareness stage, at the consideration stage, or decision stage of each of the buyer's journey? And it's also important to define those metrics and make sure that all the stakeholders have bought into those metrics. So getting them clearly written down early in the process, so making sure that this campaign can be defined as successful or not at the end. And also making sure that whatever measurements we do come up with, that these are prioritized, that we're not getting caught up in things what we call vanity metrics. So is the number of impressions really that important? The number of likes that you get? Well, it depends on the goal of your campaign in the first place. So making sure that you're prioritizing measurements and linking them to the high priority goals for the campaign. Next slide, please. So when we're doing analytics, things like understanding, well, if our goal is consumption, well, what sort of things do we want? How many people do we want to consume the content? Which type of content? If the goal is sharing, well, which channels do we want them to share on? Which channels are most important to us? Which content is most important to us? And when should we share content? And then leads. How is this content marketing campaign supporting our demand generation and supporting lead nurturing? And how are we going to measure that? What can we have in place to make sure that we know what's happening? And then finally, sales. How exactly is this content marketing helping us to convert leads to sales? Over to you, Mike.
So I wanted to give an example, and I'm going to give one from Averetek's own perspective. So we have a relationship with Serious Decisions. We, through that relationship, are allowed to license a certain number of pieces of their content each year and use them for demand generation. So much like a channel partner's relationship with a vendor, we are able to use their content. So they came out with a research brief a couple of weeks ago called Channel Marketing Planning Assumptions 2019, which I have pictured here on the screen. And it talks about 5 planning assumptions. So as soon as it came out, I went to my account manager, said, this is a piece of content I want to get, because I have to go through a request process, different than your partners who might log into your partner site or partner portal and just be able to use it. So once I was able to take the piece of content, set it up, and start running demand gen around it, we had a great response to it. Now, I chose this piece of content, I'll kind of put myself in that role of the partner for a couple of reasons. First off, it's timely. People are starting to think about 2019 planning, so I knew this is something that's on the mind of my prospective customers, right? I sell to channel marketers. They're trying to make plans for next year. Something that speaks to channel marketing planning assumptions is probably going to be really interesting and targeted to them. So set up a landing page, published the offer, sent it out through email to our database, wrote a blog article about it, put it into our social media feed, so it's going out in kind of an evergreen rotation of content. Now, how do I measure success with this? This is essentially applying the model that Mike just described, and where I feel like there's a great opportunity for your partners. So I look at page views, visitors, and submissions. So I'm looking at, on the page itself, the landing page that I set up, how many people are hitting the page and what are they doing? Of course, submitting the form to download this offer, because I've put that form in there. It's a gated offer, as it's called in content marketing, right? They have to fill out a form and tell me just their email address. That's all I'm asking for. But I look at the traffic and say, okay, am I getting good conversions on the page? Because that's one way to evaluate content marketing. So if people land on the page but they don't fill out the form, that's a problem, right? We may not be telling enough information about what the offer is, or building enough intrigue and interest to get people to fill out the form. So if there are problems with kind of the on-page metrics, then I'm going to make some changes potentially. I also look at email statistics. So if people are receiving the email, how many were sent, delivered, opened, and clicked. Unsubscribe would be another metric to look at it. But if I'm not getting a lot of page traffic and not getting a lot of opens and clicks on my emails, then maybe I need to change up the content in the email itself. So depending on kind of what you're seeing from a results standpoint, at the partner level, at the overall campaign level, so you can kind of take this from the brand perspective, where if you published what you think is going to be a killer offer and partners aren't participating, right? As Mike indicated earlier, partner engagement is a problem that everyone struggles with. We all have kind of breakthrough moments at different times, and kind of trying to recreate the circumstance. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's challenging. But you could look at it from your campaign and say, you know, this planning assumptions for 2019 I thought was going to be a big deal, but partners just aren't participating. Okay, maybe I need to incentivize participation. That's something that I talk to a lot of our channel marketing clients about all the time, is different creative ideas for incentivizing partner behavior, trying to get partners to pay attention, break through the noise of all the other things that are coming their way, and look at how they might benefit from something like this. Because even when it's really good for the partner, even really when it's really good for their customers, they still may not notice. And it's frustrating from our point of view because we feel like this is really compelling stuff. But you got to remember, one of the things Mike said earlier as well is that channel partners may be carrying several different product lines from several vendors. And so just kind of breaking through and getting their attention to then be able to break through and get their prospects and customers' attention requires work, and sometimes incentivizing that with kind of fun offers, whether it's as simple as giving a Starbucks card away or something more compelling and interesting, like it's back to school time here in the US, and we're a couple weeks into it. What if I ran a promotion where everything that you did that kind of qualified as an activity in the campaign earns you chances to win a $500 gift card for school supplies to the school of your choice? Right, you're going to be able to go to the principal of that school or the PTO and tell them you're about to get a $500 gift card because I won a contest at work. Right, it's going to make you a rock star. So you can do kind of fun things that are timely, that are topical, that are relevant to the people you're trying to influence. Create those kind of incentives. There's a lot of opportunity around it. But third-party content in general, people really understand in kind of sales and marketing land. Serious Decisions is well known and does high quality work. In the world of tech, you'll see Gartner, IDC, Forrester. There's a lot of sources of great third-party content that people may not have any idea who the channel partner is, but if they're offering a Gartner Magic Quadrant or a Forrester Wave report, people get it, they understand the value, and they'll convert on a form by submitting that form for the channel partner. So they can be a great source of leads by using this kind of content. Okay, so another real world example there. Hopefully that was helpful to you. We're going to go in and kind of wrap things up now. So first off, Mike, why don't you kind of recap here?
Sure. So always like to give a few just key takeaways, because we've certainly covered a lot of information here. Firstly, content marketing is critical. The buying process has changed dramatically, as we've seen, so content marketing has to be an anchor point in your marketing strategy with channel partners. It can't be any content. You must first seek to educate, then sell. It has to be valuable content that's specific to a particular audience. It also needs to be matched to buyer personas and the buyer's journey if it's really going to achieve its true potential for you. And as usual, planning is absolutely key, and analytics are absolutely key, and both of these pieces are often neglected. So make sure that when you're working with channel partners, those two elements are really focused on.
So some suggestions that we have for you. So we haven't really talked about the Channel Institute and what you do there, Mike, but I think we should just kind of give a brief mention here and talk about the new Certified Digital Co-Marketing Professional offering that you have there.
Sure. So the Channel Institute provides certificates in channel management and channel marketing, and our newest certificate is the Certified Digital Co-Marketing Professional, and all of our courses are reviewed and approved by senior channel thought leaders at some of the largest companies in the world. So it's very much a technology industry-wide initiative. So the certificate in digital co-marketing is aimed both at channel marketers, at vendors, and also at the people charged with marketing at channel partners, to help them upskill and to teach them a lot of the concepts that we were looking at today, things like the buyer's journey, buyer personas, and all of this critical stuff if they're going to be successful at digital marketing. But it comes at it all from a co-marketing perspective and addresses the unique challenges of co-marketing.
Great. So it's linked here again. You can download today's slides from the handouts feature. For people who are listening to the recording, we'll make this set of slides available for download as well too. I'm also linking here a channel marketing bill of materials ebook. This is something that When I came to Averetek, kind of coming out of a field marketing leadership role, I found a lot of the times that when I was dealing with product marketing and they're kind of working with the team, they didn't really know what we needed for content for partners. So I wrote an ebook that goes through in great detail exactly what kind of content you should build out, piece by piece, linking to best practices or examples for every single thing that's mentioned. And it's all aligned by the buyer's journey like we've talked about here. So it's been a really popular ebook for us. I think it's a good resource, and especially as you work with other teams within the organization, whether those are agencies or product marketing or your demand gen team, it gives you a good map. So when you're going to them and saying, I need content for our partners, you can be really specific and detailed about what it is. Or if you're building it yourselves, you'll see some best practices in there. So that's a free ebook on the Averetek website. And then you can read or listen to a book called Marketing Multiplied. So I co-authored this book with Peter Thomas, our CEO here at Averetek. We found that just there wasn't a book about channel marketing anywhere in the industry. So we thought, hey, why not us? So we wrote a book about it. It lays out a lot of the kind of the foundation pieces around how to approach channel marketing. We think it's useful for practitioners and executives and beginners, as the title says there. So would encourage you to check that out on Amazon. It's available as a Kindle or hardcover or paperback or even Audible. We just actually had a brilliant recording done of that. You don't have to listen to me or listen to Peter. You can listen to the talented Tim McDonald recorded us a great version of that, so you can check that out. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move us over. So if there's any questions that you want to ask or have any scenarios in mind, things that you're considering, you can go ahead and go to webinar panel here and click open to ask a question. Or hit us in the chat, and I will pop this out so I can see it on my other screen and kind of help tee up anything. I think one question as we kind of wait for the folks here that I get all the time is, people feel overwhelmed about kind of crafting content for through partner use, and they can't create 1,000 pieces. So Mike, in your experience and kind of your travels, when you're telling people kind of how to prioritize content, what are the top couple of pieces that you're recommending at this point? Think maybe kind of learning stage content, real kind of top of the funnel, beginning of the buyer's journey.
Yeah, well, actually, that's what I was going to respond with. We would never jump in recommending any content. The first thing we would do is seek to understand if they have made the right decisions. So the questions are, well, who's your buyer persona and what stage of the buyer's journey are you targeting for that persona? Okay, well then let's look at what might work. But if you're talking about general stuff and you're talking about early stage of the buyer's journey, we would say things like blog posts, things that don't have gated content if you're just trying to create awareness at the time, but also to maybe use what we call a content upgrade. So maybe you have a blog post that people can read, but if they want more information, well, maybe you have a form that they have to then fill out to read the white paper. So that sort of logical flow with logical gates where you can collect people's information is obviously important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, many times we see vendors and brands kind of creating content that speaks only to shopping or buying stage of the journey, and they don't take the time to lay the foundation. So one of the quotes, and who knows if this is something that Peter and I said for the first time or if we got it somewhere, but those who teach earn the right to sell. So if you're not the one who taught that customer or prospect something, someone else did, and they're likely going to be the person they go back to. But those who teach earn the right to sell. So it's an important premise to think about. How can I help my channel partners by enabling them as teachers? And that's where learning content really starts the process. So I'm just reading the question manager, not a question, but I'm looking forward to reading the bill of materials ebook. So glad someone finally created it. Yeah, me too. So thanks for that comment. It's like going to, content oftentimes when you're working with other teams internally, which is quite often how channel marketers work. It's like going to a restaurant without a menu and they have an unlimited kitchen. It's like, well, what do you want? I don't know. Well, what do you serve? What do you make? Well, we can make anything you want. Well, it's kind of like you do this dance for long enough and it gets exhausting. So yeah, the channel marketing, and I kind of go through what I think is a standard bill of materials, but then there's even what I would, so BOM being kind of short for bill of materials. I would say there's a light BOM, a standard BOM, and a super BOM. So depending on kind of what you're doing and what the campaign is, for example, I worked at Microsoft for a long time. We had a standard BOM for our campaigns, but when we would do a new version of Office or Windows or something like that, we had a super launch BOM, and there would be a ton of extra content created because it was such a huge launch for us and such a big product. So don't feel like you have to do everything for every single campaign. There's definitely a lot of choices to be made there. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions here, so hopefully everybody benefited, got some good stuff, picked up a tip or two. Again, the recording will be sent out afterwards, link to the slides as well. If you have any follow-ups, our email addresses are right on the screen there. But Mike Kelly, thank you so much for your, oh, we have a question before I say our goodbye. I was gonna thank you, Mike, but hold on. Can you talk a bit more about developing personas aligned to the buyer's journey? And do you recommend role-based personas? So you want to give a little bit more on that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, certainly role-based personas would be a good starting point. There's a number of approaches from that. The most effective approach I've seen is starting with a template. And you'll find templates all around the web. HubSpot obviously have lots for that sort of thing. But let me make an assumption that you work at a vendor and that you want to go to channel partners. I think vendors need to come up with their own templates and be able to go and perhaps enable their channel account managers to go to partners with these templates that lead them through a process. So I think that sort of alignment really requires a template, and a fairly simple one, but making sure that everybody is trained on how to use that. And then when you go to your channel partner, you can train them how to do it as well.
Yeah, and I think that this is, if you haven't been through an exercise like this before, there are training videos, particularly HubSpot goes through kind of creating buyer personas and talks you through it. But if I think of, I won't share the full persona, but if I think about the ideal buyer for Averetek is a channel marketing leader who is in most cases a woman, and she's usually anywhere from kind of early 30s to kind of mid to late 40s. She's educated. She has usually a family, usually maybe a couple of kids in there. Busy from an activity standpoint, might like to drink wine. There are kind of those attributes that you can pull out in kind of persona definition, and then say, okay, from what I offer, how do I speak to the things that that person cares about, right? What does she want to do with her life? What is the profile of kind of what she looks like? So you can be really specific. Like if I say channel marketing is my audience that I sell to, I can then break that down between the VP who's going to sign the contract, the researcher who's kind of pulling us together as one of the vendors to consider, the people who are sitting on the buyers committee, and create a persona for each one of those. So you can get really detailed with them. You're never going to capture everyone that you likely run into for the different things that you offer, but being that specific about the different personas, the different levels of people that you will see sitting around the table. If you were thinking you're going in to pitch your product, who's sitting around that table in the conference room that's going to evaluate and creating that persona? So the solution is ultimately the same, that one product that you're trying to drive or set of products, whatever it happens to be. But it's what is the individual take that speaks to the priorities and the concerns of each of the people around the table, and that's where your persona definitions are going to come in. So that's really kind of how to think about that. So hopefully that helps with your question there about personas. Okay, good. Well, thanks, Mike. You did a great job, covered some great information. I know people will really enjoy the Channel Institute course on digital co-marketing that you're releasing soon. So encourage people to go to channelinstitute.com and check that out. Hit Mike up with any questions that you have. Other than that, I want to thank everybody for their time today. I think we're in good shape, and we'll go ahead and wrap things up today. So thank you so much, everyone.